Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Supervisor and Examiner, the first Supervisor Munir SPD MED TESOL, the second Supervisor Nur Fitri S SPD MPD, the first examiner Hairil Anwar Karompo MA PhD, the second examiner Muhammad Miftah Fauzan SPD MPD. First of all, thanks to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala because the opportunity I'm doing a video proposal right now, and then thanks to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for give us a salvation for all of us, and salawat and salam to our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam who bring us to the darkness era to this era. And in this occasion, my name is NURUL FATANAH MUSNI, and from English Education 2018, I will doing a proposal video presentation. I will present my first proposal entitled using synectic strategy to improve the student vocabulary. Next slide is this proposal deal with chapter 1 introduction. Introduction covered by background, previous study, problem statement, research objective, and then chapter 2 covered by literature review and conceptual framework. And then chapter 3 research design. Covered by variable and their operational definition, population and sample, and then research instrument, and the last is technique of data analysis. The first slide is a background. It's the background. As we know, in this era of globalization, the use of English is very needed for everyday life. Vocabulary is one the important thing to us for learning foreign language, either English or any other language. Vocabulary is a common problem in learning and teaching foreign language. In vocabulary masteries, there are so many methods in mastering it. And then in this research is aimed to diagnose the student to improve their vocabulary by using a synectic strategy. According to Alexander, 2011, there are 3 reasons why vocabulary is so important for language development and particular reading ability. First, when the meaning of word is known, comprehension improves. And the second, when communication is based on the use of words, listening, speaking, reading, and the writing all benefit for having a higher vocabulary. And the third is improving a child's or adolescent vocabulary will improve their academic and social confidence and competence. The synectic strategy can be used in vocabulary learning, and this method will make the student more interesting in learning and improve their vocabulary because the synectic strategy focuses on the student's creativity. In this student will measure the vocabulary of students who use the synectic strategy before using the synectic strategy as a learning medium in using English and compare them. So there are learning outcomes that we can see and prove through research instruments that will later be used to measure student ability. Second, the next slide is review study. Review study from Cham AR 2012. The title of the studies is Using Synectic Strategy to the First Semester Student of English Education Department of Alauddin State Islamic University academic year 2011 and 2012 that show that the using of synectic strategy can improve vocabulary in the university too. And then next is problem statement. Based on the background, the researcher formulated the research question. The research question, how does synectic strategy affect the vocabulary mastery of the first year of SMA Negeri 1 Baru? And then research objective. So on the research question, the research objective is about find out how synthetic strategy affect in vocabulary mastery ability of first year SMA Negeri 1 Baru. And then now is a chapter 2, literature review. The literature review, there are two things that I will explain. The first is vocabulary and next is syntactic. Vocabulary, the first point, the nature of vocabulary. As we know, the vocabulary is very important of a language that must be accurate by everyone interested in language in learning it. David Walking, 2002, said, without grammar, very little can be conveyed, but without vocabulary, nothing can be conveyed. So it's very needed for us as a beginner or as a as a student for learn about vocabulary. And then the point B, types of vocabulary. According to the John Breed 2000, there are two categories of vocabulary. First is active vocabulary and then passive vocabulary. Active vocabulary is a type of vocabulary that is employed in speech or writing and consistent of words. It meaning when we need to make the sentence or speak, we use the active vocabulary. And then the passive vocabulary is a vocabulary that is known but not using by someone. Understand? And then C, some difficult in teaching and learning vocabulary. According to Fisher and Black-Howes, 2005, the difficult of learning a word's meaning is determined by at least three factors. First is the learner's characteristic. Second, the word's characteristic. And the third is the intended level of words learning for the words learning. And then we move to the point D, some technique in learning some technique in teaching and learning vocabulary. According to Harmer, 1991, describing some ways of presenting vocabulary as a following. The first is reality. The way the teacher bring the real object into the classroom and introduce to the student what is the subject is by the realities object. Example like a book, a pen, or bowl, and etc. And then the second is a picture. The technique of vocabulary through the picture is familiar, focusing on object. Familiar on focusing on object, yeah, right. Example like we make the student see the picture from the bowl, example like bowl, windows, on etc. And then third is meme, action, and gesture. And then the fourth is contrast. The way the teacher show the student a word and ask the student to find out the contrast of the word. And then the five enumeration. A word is with general meaning, for example, vegetable. The teacher introduced the word and asked the student for find out some specific word relate to vegetable. Like example such as tomato, a tomato. What else? Carrot, chili, and etc. And the sixth is explanation. The way the teacher introduces word by explaining or describing the object and ask the student to guess what the object is. And seven is, or the last is translation. The way the teacher asks the student to translate to give word into their mother tongue. The strategy is very useful for beginners. And then the point A, step to learn vocabulary. There are 5 steps are as follows: encountering new words, encountering new words, getting the words form, determining the meaning of words, um, memorizing consultation of words form and meaning, analyzing the words, and then the point is the aspect of vocabulary. According with Kabib 2018, when learning English, there are various aspects of vocabulary that must be mastered. First is pronunciation. The right pronunciation of each word in English is known as a pronunciation. Suharto 2020. The majority of terms have not only one pronunciation, but there are words who have a two or more pronunciation. Example like read, read, and then read. And another word, another except another word have like that, example like present and etc. And then secondly, spelling spelling is a crucial in learning vocabulary since it aids in reading and serves as a link between letter and sound. And then third is meaning, the meaning of words in the real world. This word may have an association or good or a negative meaning, and that and aren't different in English dictionary. When the studying English vocabulary, one of the most important thing to consider is when a term is acceptable or enunci- in, incorrect, acceptable or incorrect when put or used in a specific situation. The fourth is usage. The use of word from a language is every communication, both verbally and in writing. This is accepted by the community of language users is a reference to as use. The last is form. Each vocabulary item can be defined sorry, each vocabulary item can be identified by knowing what part of speak it is, how to spell it, whether it belongs to a family of words, how many variable, and etc. And then we move to the second literature review. Synaptic strategy. Synaptic strategy. The point A is concept of synaptic strategy. Synaptic model is one of Jordan's learning models that focus on helping the student enhance their creativity. Anur Rahman, 2014. Synaptic is a creativity problem-solving method to task the participants from problem analysis to idea development, idea production and development. The name of product, the name of the procedure holds the key to understanding it. The word synaptic is derived for the Greek roots. Syn is meaning bring together, and actic is meaning diverse element. 1919, Prince and Weber. Synaptic is beside on the premise that by analyzes the mind's unique ability to connect seemingly unrelatable components of truth, we can generate unexpected new idea that can then be turned into practical solution to problems. And then there are 3 types of analogies that can be employed in synaptic strategy. According to Ango 2010, first is a personal analogy. A person may recognizing with the things or person being describing. The second is direct analogy. Direct observation of natural phenomena leads to creative thinking, to creative creative thinking in this case. The third is compacted conflict to promote mental flexibility, and yeah, like that. The point B, the steps in technique by using synthetic strategy. Uh, Synaptic learning methods that will be used as a reference for teacher and student when carrying out teacher and learning activity in the classroom are input amalgamation, personal analogy, extrapolations, and new analogies. Step as the following. First step, step 1. Identify vocabulary, word, or content terms. Step 2, provide the student with words not related to the content. Example like the uh, watch, like watching TV or watching you, or watching them, or what, etc. And then step 3, create 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 an example to model the synaptic egg comment is like because a comment is like a toaster because it's a burn so hot. It's an example like that. The step 4, share your example with the class, explain your logic or thinking for the comparison, give the student the opportunity to list additional ways that a comment might be like a toaster. Step 5, ask the student to create their own comparison. Student may work in the term or pains. Step 6 is direct student to create a create illustration to accompany their synaptics. The last or the step 7 is direct a small group to share their creative with the class. And point C is the benefit of synaptic. The benefit of synaptic include: first is establish and start creative procedure. Second is improve understanding of certain topic of problems. Third, cultivate new concept. Fourth, difference thinking skill and cat solving. Fifth, can adapt to variable technique and learning contents. Sixth, improving language appreciation. Seven, assist in the language in the story new reports. Uh, D, the children roles in synaptic strategy. The first is to respect the group and other people right in the classroom uh, or the environment. Second is to actively provide an idea to the group or entire class. Third is students will gain responsibility and independence in managing their group and tasks through group work. Fourth is students serve students serve students serve as a judge of other student work by selecting the best analogy statement for the class. And E, the teacher role in synaptic strategy. First is to follow the interest and needed of the learner. Sorry. Second is to provide a learning atmosphere that is both interesting and safe for students. Third is overseeing the process of the student through the procedure. Fourth is to keep an eye on analyze the situation and make material and activities available. And then next slide is conceptual framework. Conceptual framework is according to input, technique, input, is meaning teacher English for teaching English vocabulary, and then the process using syntactic strategy in teaching English vocabulary. The vocabulary that the from the five aspects of vocabulary, I'm just focus. This research just focusing for three aspects. First is meaning, second is pronunciation, and the third is form. And then Chapter 3, Research Design. The research design is critical component of the research process. Includes a process that can guide the researchers to collect and process the data in order to achieve the research goal. Like example, like research design that I use, pretense, treatment, and post test. This is the the research that I use is pre-experimental. Sorry, forget it. And then variable and their operational definition. Variable, there are two variable in this proposal. The first variable in the is it dependent vocabulary mastery of the first year of SMA and Satu Baru. What is vocabulary mastery? Vocabulary is an important element in learning English. It is the first step for the student if they want to achieve their goal to fluently to speak English or learning English skill. And then meanwhile the independent variable is a syntactic strategy. A syntactic strategy is a develop student creativity, problem solving skills, and personal creativity. And then, sorry, there a problem with with the with the process recording. So the next slide is population and sample. Population. The population of this research will be the first year grade student of senior high school 1 Baru or SMA Negeri 1 Baru in academic year 2022 and 2023. And the sample is this research will be using cluster random sampling. And the next slide is research instrument. The researchers, the sorry, the researcher will use a questions and worksheet. It will contain questions about the vocabulary, and the researchers gives pretest and post-tense. Give the pretest and post-tense and to determine the result of the vocabulary mastery test before and after being give treatment. And then a technique of data analysis. Data will be collected through the pre-test and the post-test, and the data will be analyzed by using the SPSS version. Yeah, SPSS version. And then classifying the student score into the following criteria, like the very good, fair, and low. I think that's all for my video proposal. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.